Good morning. I will call this emergency meeting of the City Council to order Wednesday, August the 30th at 9 a.m. The purpose of this meeting would be to discuss item number 1, which is the consent of the City Council to continue the declaration of disaster as issued by the mayor pursuant to Chapter 418-108A of the Texas Government Code. This declaration was issued last Friday, August the 25th, and is set to expire for state law after 7 days. Therefore, we have the meeting of the City Council to decide what we do going further with this declaration. What I'd like to do in opening is ask Mr. Hayes, our legal counsel, to sort of go over with us, since this is sort of new territory to some of us, what this is as pertains to law and what we need to do and why we're here going forward.
Thank you, Mayor. It is new territory, and so just to go over it, thank you for the being so responsive and accommodating to have this special emergency meeting. We haven't, in my time here, I think this is only the second one we've done, so this doesn't happen certainly every year. So as the mayor said last week, per state law, Chapter 418 of the Texas Government Code, she issued a declaration of disaster. And per that law, that disaster declaration would expire automatically after 7 days unless council consents to extend it. And so that's the action here that we're asking you to take based upon the request of the fire department, who's managing the emergency operations center and that aspect for the city. So that's why you're here. It's indefinite, although the thought as of this morning is to then bring you back an action item at your September 12th meeting that'll terminate the declaration. So that's kind of where we are now. That's the process and the action we're asking you all to take this morning.
Okay. Thank you. And my understanding is that if the situation worsens in that area of disaster in East Texas and the Gulf region, that we may experience more evacuees, and we'll have somebody address that here in just a moment. Right now, I think the situation is under control, and let me just say at this point, I went out to the Kerrville Bible Church and surveyed the situation. I went from there yesterday to the Red Cross and met with Jacques Dubois, and I'm going to tell you, hats off to our first responders and emergency management coordinator, fire and EMS, and the KPD, and the county that's done just such a remarkable job in this situation. Fortunately, we weren't in that area of disaster ourselves. We dodged the bullet there, but we have accommodated people, and I promised 2 of the evacuees who were in tears at Kerrville Bible Church yesterday that I would thank you personally from their vantage point for all the courtesies that have been extended to them. But if this worsens, if some of these levees break or some of these breaches occur, then we're likely to have more evacuees, and thus we're looking at an extension of our services, which, as I understand it, basically encompasses 24-hour protection, police protection. Other than that, what I'm going to do at this point, so we'll understand what services we're providing under this declaration, I'm going to ask Chief Smith to come forward and address the council and the citizens.
Morning, Mayor, Council.
Morning.
So let me just start with what's been done since the disaster declaration on August 25th, 2017. As you're aware, 2 shelters were opened, one to house the point-to-point evacuees that's facilitated through an agreement between Kerr County and San Patricio County, and then a second shelter to house the general population, or those that self-evacuated from some of those areas. The shelter counts as of yesterday: 53 people at Schreiner University, 21 at Kerrville Bible Church. As you mentioned earlier, the American Red Cross Hill Country chapter is managing both shelters. They always do an excellent job coordinating with us in the county and doing that. From the city's perspective, we have committed the following resources. EMS conducted medical evaluations on those point-to-point evacuees. KPD, the Kerrville Police Department, has 1 officer on a 12-hour rotating basis, covering shifts with the Kerrville Sheriff's Office for security purposes at both shelters. Our emergency management coordinator has coordinated the shelter activities with the county's emergency management coordinator, and our PIO, who's been filling in, has done an outstanding job with our media and press releases. In addition to that, the current situation, as we speak, buses are at Schreiner University transporting those San Patricio evacuees back to their area. We have 19 currently at the Kerrville Bible Church. We were informed by our state emergency management district coordinator that the state has arranged a 10,000 capacity shelter in the San Antonio area. And that's in preparation for the floodwaters in the Houston area are just now beginning to recede. So as you said, the importance of extending this declaration is we don't know what the shelter needs are going to be in the future. But we're looking at working with our district coordinator to possibly relocate those at Kerrville Bible Church to the San Antonio shelter to put them closer to their points of return. So that's sort of a summary of what's happened, what's being done, and we recommend that we extend the disaster declaration because even though there's a 10,000 shelter capacity in the San Antonio area, who knows what will happen once the water recedes as a result of the fallout in the Houston area. We may have to, support San Antonio in that process. So I think it's important that we extend it. If we need it, it's in place. If we don't, then we can
address
cancel
it on September
That's
the 12th.
correct.
And let me ask you for just a moment, how's your place, Chief? I know you have a place in Fort Bend County.
Well, as you know, I was in Alaska all last week, and it was a terrible situation to come back to.
Yes.
Actually, my flight got canceled because Houston's airport was closed, so I had to fly to Dallas, drive to Houston, drive back to Kerrville. But on 1 o'clock yesterday when I left, my place was fine. But it's pretty scary because I see some places in the area that are flooding that I've never seen flood before. So there's some concern. A lot of it hinges on what happens with the Brazos River. So I've got my fingers crossed and praying that all works out well.
And we join with you in that. I have family near there, the mandatory evacuation there as well. So it's a dire situation for Houston, and we just want to be prepared. And hats off to everybody, who's worked to facilitate these evacuees coming in and in the future. And CNN correspondent was here, and I said, we welcome what we can handle because we could be in the same position ourselves one day and need that help. Are there any questions by council?
Mayor, just a quick remark.
Yeah, sure.
Well, just to echo your remarks about our public safety personnel and the work that they did and the staff, the way they stepped up, and our cooperation with the county was just exemplary. But also want to extend our thanks to the community for really embracing and welcoming so many people in town for an extended period. And then finally, just so the council's aware, the governor did issue a declaration that we are not to charge hotel tax for a period of time if people identify themselves as evacuees for the emergency. So that's already in place and being done and being accounted for. So.
Thank you. And again, if there are any questions by the public on why we necessarily declare the disaster, is because we look for reimbursement for expenses that are over and above our normal operations for these events. And so that's why we're making the declaration.
Right. The disaster declaration, it actually does two things. Those communities that are impacted by the disaster, it allows them to be able to request the needed resources at a local level, state level, federal level. But for communities like ours that are supporting those relief efforts, it facilitates the reimbursement process for us for those resources we've committed to the disaster.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what, I understand all of this about the shelters, but do we do anything with the people that just came and went to a hotel? Is there any support for that?
Yes. So many of them go to the shelters during the day just for food, and if they contact the fire department, and some of them have, for example, we had a whole group here from Ingleside that set up their remote city hall in the Inn of the Hills, and Roger facilitated all of that. And the Hills were great. They extended a landline to their hotel room so they could be up and running. And so there were a lot of things like that were happening beyond just the shelters.
Okay.
And then, Councilman, it's not uncommon for even those that came to our area and, checked into hotels, they may have anticipated being there a day or two, and now it's been 4 or 5 days. So it's not uncommon for those people to actually run out of funds and have to
Transition to the shelter.
Yeah.
No.
And if I could make a couple of more, just I think public service remarks, since we're here, and I think it pertains to the topic. I did notice the Salvation Army is going to be leaving. They're going to be taking their services towards the Gulf, but they did assure us that they're going to be having some boots on the ground here to help those who remain continue to have the services that they need. So that was reassuring to see that. Also, I don't know, Stuart, if we have on the website where that people can make donations. Okay, good, because there are certain things you can and cannot donate, and there are certain places you should and shouldn't donate. So,
And I think Roger was telling me at one point last week they had the Salvation Army had taken in $15,000.
It was the
Red Cross.
Red Cross.
One morning.
Yeah, I was there yesterday morning. I just have to say this for praises to this community. There was an unnamed little couple in the lobby, and Jacques ushered me in to meet them, and they didn't want any acclaim. They didn't want anything in the paper, but they handed a check to the Red Cross for $5,000, and I could tell it was a sacrificial gift. And so, we've just had numerous situations like that, and donations and concerns. So, hats off. It was really moving for me to see.
Great.
Okay. Any further remarks or comments? Or if not, I would look for a motion from council to extend indefinitely the emergency services under this code.
Move.
We have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. And motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much. And at this point, we will adjourn at 9:12.